Somebody wants to say hello.
Goodness.
How
Terry,
are you?
how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
My God. Nice to see you,
Yeah.
honey.
We're
Good
actually
to see you too.
we're actually live, believe it or not.
Oh no.
Hey, folks, that was a quick hello. We are live here on Daly Fish, and we got a very special guest here. As you can see, award-winning actor Bryan Cranston joins us. He begins the second season as conflicted judge Michael Desiato in the New Orleans drama Your Honor on Showtime starting this weekend. We're going to show you the trailer. Take a look.
I am offering you a chance to atone for what you have done. To help bring down the single greatest threat to New Orleans.
I can't do this. There are memories that I just can't bear.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Have I given you the impression that any of this is optional?
Why do I keep seeing you around my hotel? What do you want with my family?
You just keep doing everything I tell you to do. And you will be just fine.
What are you not telling me?
Stay away from my family.
The Baxter's hunting you down. Get him.
That's not how this is gonna play out.
And there it is. It reminds me of Emily in Paris, right, Fish?
I watched the first season again, and then I got, I saw this, Bryan, and look at I don't know if you look more like Harrison Ford from the movie The Fugitive there, or some rabbi that tried to recruit me to play in his B'nai Brit basketball league. Look at that beard you got. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very anguished, painful to look at. But it was, this season is the first season, if those who watched, was about a man who loses his soul, his principles, in order to save the life of his son, and it failed. It didn't work. He lost everything. So I thought, well, what's the flip side of a man who is assertive and has tremendous legal acumen and manipulates and is thinking quickly on his feet? And after, God forbid, anyone goes through something like that, you are a changed human being. And I wanted to explore what it would be like, honestly, to have this man in despair and pain, and see if there was redemption and forgiveness available. And so we just flipped the whole thing on its side, and it's still exciting and tense, and potentially hopeful.
Oh, hopeful. If you watch it again, you'll see just the body of work. I mean, you're supporting cast. I don't know how to. I'm really bad with names. Michael Stuhlbarg how do you say his name?
Stuhlbarg, yeah.
Terrific. The body work he's done just adds, and he's this crime boss in New Orleans, and you being the protagonist and him the antagonist. Can't wait to see how that carries on in season 2.
We go toe to toe, and I've worked with Michael before. He played Edward G. Robinson on the movie that I did called Trumbo, and lovely man, lovely in-depth actor. But we have a tremendous cast. Hope Davis. There's a woman named Andreen Hammond who plays Big Mo, the head of the street gang. And we dive into these characters, unlike the first season, which was mostly central to my character. This season, we expand out and we really get into a lot of different characters to explore the ripple effect of tragedy. When tragedy happens, it doesn't just affect the one person. It really has a growing effect on everyone. And I think the season it was really helped by that. I mean, it really gave us a lot of perspective and exciting moments.
I saw in some of the Rosie Perez is going to appear in the and she's got a really big role in there. Just without giving stuff away, kind of give us an idea because she's new to the show. Give us an idea of what we're going to expect from her.
Well, it was a perspective to have someone who was not connected to the first season come in and kind of take control. My character, you'll see in the first season, my character is devastated, and he wants nothing to do with anything. He just wants to be left alone. And she plays an assistant district attorney and is hell-bent to get information on Jimmy Baxter, played by Michael Stuhlbarg, to bring his whole syndicate down. And she bribes me to go. Actually, she threatens me to go help her, much to my chagrin. And I do it because it would mean that I could save a friend from persecution. And so I do it. But she is a manipulating, commanding presence, as Rosie Perez is. She takes the bull by the horns and just runs with it. And she and I butt heads all the way through. It's a great battle to have her on the show this year. Speaking of grabbing the bull by the horns, there is a segment in this first episode, this coming weekend, where I am in a ring with a live bull.
Wow.
And that's no bull.
You know, if you go to the archive, the library of great Bryan Cranston scenes, in season 1, I believe you're taking your son to the funeral parlor where your wife is buried, and there's a homeless guy that asks you for money, and you say to the guy, "Are you going to use it for booze or drugs?" And he said, "No." "Well, I would have given it to you if you would have used it for booze or drugs." I can't. That scene. Every time I see that scene, I laugh. It's the writing, and in season 1, sense of humor came out in your character, and you were a normal father that went through strife. So I imagine by just looking at your hairdo, the Harrison Ford look in season 2, you're gonna go through some shit, aren't you?
I get dragged through it. Yeah. But Showtime was very courageous. I must admit, when I pitched them the idea that my character would, throughout the season, be dealing with loss and grief and despair and depression, that's enough to say we don't want it. But they were supportive, and I said, trust me, though, the characters around are still active and involved and dangerous, and so we're going to put together this alchemy to make it work in the storytelling process.
So this second season for you, is it different from the original show, which was an Israeli show? Are you guys taking it in a totally different direction?
Yeah. The Israeli show Kvoto was done really well. And I didn't look at it until after I was done with the first season. And I wasn't even contracted to do the second season. But when Peter Moffat, our showrunner from season 1, proposed this idea of the flip side to the first season, I got excited about it. And I wanted a show, especially now, in a societal way. I think our country is less empathetic. It's a coarser, harder country than I remember it. And I think there is a need to have a softer, more understanding, more embracing kind of society. And so I wanted to do this story that offers a place for forgiveness, both in asking for forgiveness and receiving or granting forgiveness. It's a big moment for human beings to be able to say, I messed up and I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And it takes another big human being to say, I do forgive you, and let's embrace. It's something we don't see a lot of. There's a lot of people who are not accountable for their actions or not responsible for their actions. And we're teaching the next generation that this is okay. And it's not okay. In fact, it takes a very enlightened human being to know and accept and recognize when they've done wrong or made a mistake.
It's interesting too, Brian. I've gone through a number of friends over the past year who have had serious losses. I mean, devastating losses of spouses dying, kids dying, stuff like that. And I'm beginning to see where they're really trying to work on grief counseling, how to take it to a next level, because we're hit with so much stuff. I mean, every time I open up the internet, I'm seeing somebody 42 years old has died, or somebody 18 years old has died. Are you kind of going a little bit in that direction of how to handle grief? Because usually when we finish a series or a show, it's here's the end, here's the lesson, move on to the next. Do you think you're going in that direction at all? Or am I kind of putting too much of a medical, psychological twist on it?
No, I think you're right on, John, is that this is truly exploring that world. And of course, in my research, I was going through the 5 stages of grief and figuring out what that feels like. And it's never clean. It's never simple. You think, oh, I'm in my anger stage, and then once I'm done with that, I shift and I move into acceptance. Or no, it doesn't work that way. It's like you're slogging through the mud constantly, and you feel you've gotten rid of all your anger, and then you regress and you have more, and that's just human. We have to deal with this. So my character, Michael Desiato, after suffering the loss of his son, the loss of his wife, the compromise of his ethics and integrity, he lost his job, he lost his friends, he lost his standing in the community. He has nothing. And so I was fascinated by, well, what happens to a human being after devastation, after tragedy? Is there a possibility that there is another portion you will never forget? You'll never forget the tragedy. You'll never forget that. And in some ways, in order to go on, you need to embrace it so that you can accept what has happened, wear the scars physically and emotionally, and move on. It reminds me of the little flower growing out of a crack of concrete. It's like, how did that happen? How is that possible? Well, it is. And there is a possibility that my character, Michael Desiato in this case, could have some semblance of a life now going forward. And that's what was really fascinating me. And I don't want to paint the picture that, Your Honor, this season is maudlin or depressing. It's not. It moves, and there's happy moments, and there's enlightenment and excitement. And I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. Talking about loss, I want to segue into something that's dear to you and I. And since we talked last July, the macabre that is the Los Angeles Dodgers still strikes me as I need some grief therapy. I don't know how you feel about Dave Roberts, but we are becoming the Marty Schottenheimer of baseball. We did win the World Series during the COVID year, 58 games. Do you see a future with this guy as a manager? Because you're a big Dodger fan. You grew up in Los Angeles. Or is this guy remember we had Chuck Knox as a coach of the Rams in the 70s, Brian? He won 7 straight divisions and lost every Daly, every playoff game he lost in the first round to the Vikings or the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, we did win a World Series. I just said that, but do you see this guy managing us in the future to glory?
Okay, first of all, Fish, I got to give you kudos for that segue to go from tragedy and loss and despair and grief, and you go into a baseball metaphor. Very nice, very nice. You're a fan. When you're a fan, you're a fan, and you wear your heart on the sleeve of the jersey, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I actually wish there was a salary cap in baseball. I do. I don't think it should be the wealthiest team has all the toys. And so what the Dodgers are doing now is scaling back on their finances. They want to reset the competitive balance tax base. And Shohei Ohtani is on the horizon, so there might be that. Who knows? But all things are good. I'm glad that we didn't get any of the cheater Houston Astros to come to Los Angeles. Those cheating bastards. I will forever disrespect that organization, and to some degree, Major League Baseball for a slap on the wrist. Even that, I don't even know if the players ever got a slap on the wrist. They got a finger wag. That's what they got. It was like, don't do that again. And it's just not fair. And I think when these players, who are certainly talented players, Altuve and Bregman and Correa, when they are retired and ready to enter into the Hall of Fame, or at least being voted on, and there is an argument in that favor to say these guys are terrific players, but they had this baggage. They have this cheating scandal on their shoulders. And I think, whether or not it prevents them from getting in the Hall of Fame, we'll see. But at least they shouldn't make it on the first ballot, and maybe not the second, and have them sweat it out to see this can't happen. We cannot do that in the sport.
All right, he is Bryan Cranston. He plays Judge Michael Desiato on Your Honor. The second season of Your Honor premieres on Showtime. It'll be streaming and also on demand on Friday, January 13th. The second season of the on-air premiere of Your Honor premieres on Showtime on this coming Sunday. That's January 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern and also Pacific. And also, we are Daly Fish, coming to you from Vegas and Myrtle Beach. I'm John Daly. He is Eric Snyder. And we've got a ton of stuff going on here. If you got questions or comments, drop us in the chat line. Or if you want to email us, it's dailyfish1@gmail.com. Bryan, we got some other things we want to chat to you about. What about the Rams? I mean, you talk about depression. Talk about depression. How do you put up with that?
That's the one thing about this sport, is that the X factor is injuries. Can you stay healthy? And if you can't stay healthy, you will not win. That's just the name of the game. We had big stars that brought us to a Super Bowl championship last year, and now they have a losing record. They had a losing record this year. A lot of that had to do with losing some players. Von Miller took off, and other players, some retired, and it was different. It changed the dynamic of the team, and then injuries happen, and then some disappointing players and whatnot, and they have to regroup. It's one of those things that I think the fan base was shell-shocked at seeing how poorly they play. They weren't even a 500 team this year. So there is a lot of assessment that needs to happen. And the LA Rams are not the only team that will be doing that. And, we'll see if McVay stays around. I like Sean McVay. I think he's an energetic, assertive, positive energy, demanding kind of coach. And I hope he stays, and I hope he and the GM, they figure out, what worked, what didn't, and make some corrections.
Yeah. Well, they went all in, Bryan, as we know, and they did win the Super Bowl. So that provides a mulligan for a lot of guys. You said Stafford went out, Cooper Kupp went out, Aaron Donald went out. You lost a lot of their stars. We get a lot of people that talk to Daly Fish, because John and I, one day will be our age, Bryan, but we're in our 60s. And they say, what was it like in the 70s, right? Bryan, what do you miss, other than Farrell's over on Van Nuys Boulevard to get the trough? What do you miss the most about the 1970s you could share with our audience?
I think the thing that I missed in our childhood in the 60s and the 70s was the innocence factor. And when I was a kid, I would come home from school and I'd hop on my bike, and my friends and I would go off, and we didn't tell our moms where we were. Our mothers didn't know where the heck we were, but we kind of had an idea of when we needed to get back home by daylight, by what was happening with the light. And so we would be off and getting into trouble and making mistakes and learning from them and making them again. I think there's an innocence to it. When I showed my daughter the Andy Griffith show, she fell in love with it because she said, was that what I said? To some extent, that was our life. We can hop on our bikes and we can go anywhere. When you went to school, you went to the school that was closest to your house.
Yeah. A
play date. The idea of our mothers putting you in the car and driving you somewhere so you can play with a kid was like, what are you talking about? You play with whoever's in your neighborhood. That's your play date. And there's some, I guess there's some simplicity that I think is lost now. And kids, I feel for them because they have all these distractions, the phones and the video games and things that we didn't have. We had to create our own entertainment.
Right.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, we had you on the show I can't believe it was a year and a half ago. It was the last time we actually had you on. I know it seems kind of strange. It was, I think it was July of 2021. One of the things we talked about is Walter White going to appear on Better Call Saul? And man, you ducked that good. You really ducked that good. And then we got to see the ending, which was pretty cool. So I know you were probably secretively, you couldn't say anything like that, but was that great for you to actually be a part of the end of that?
It was terrific. Vince Gilligan created Breaking Bad, and then he co-created Better Call Saul with Peter Gould. And we told Aaron Paul and I told them, listen, if you want us in this show, just tell us and we'll do whatever you want. You don't have to pitch us anything about what the story would be here. And you just let us know. And for every year that Better Call Saul was on, nothing. We didn't get a call. We would be asked all the time, are you going to be on? Are you going to be on? And our truthful answer was, I don't know. I have no idea. We're ready to do it, but we don't know. And then we did get the call for the last season. And Aaron and I were flown out together. It was like a clandestine operation. We were flown out to Albuquerque in the dark of night on a private plane. We landed at Albuquerque Airport and went over to a private section where nothing was except a black SUV. I swear to God. And we stepped down off on the tarmac. I take 2 steps and I'm inside the black SUV, and then Aaron's in it, our luggage in the back, close the doors, off we go. It was our transportation captain, Dennis Milliken. And he says, well, we can't let you go out anywhere. And it's like, really? He said, yeah, no, Vince doesn't want you to be seen in town or anything. It's like, okay. We were there for 4 days. And they took us to a 2-story Airbnb, and Aaron had the top floor. I had the bottom floor. I guess it was an age thing. And,
you couldn't walk up them stairs.
Want me climbing the stairs. And anyway, we were there, and our wardrobe call, everything was brought to this place. We weren't allowed to leave. We had everything we needed. All the food in there. And if we want, there were menus, and they said, well, pick out whatever you want for lunch and dinner and whatever, and call us and we'll pick it up and bring it to you. And so it was a compound. So there was a wall that circumnavigated the entire property. And I would do my walking exercise within the property, inside the wall. I would just go round and round and round and touching the wall on each time I hit, but I would just circle and circle and circle, then do push-ups, and sit up. And it was like, oh my God, this is the most luxurious little prison house arrest that I've ever been in.
Now you know what Osama bin Laden went through.
Same conditions. Absolutely the same conditions. And then the SWAT team came in and tried to take us out. Yeah.
Well, I have to say something to you because I got to thank you for one thing. You created, and Aaron Paul created, a mezcal called Dos Hombres. And that brand of mezcal got me through major Raider losses that I went to at Allegiance. I'm a big Raider fan. I live in Las Vegas. You could talk about the Rams all you want, but the Raiders are a real you-know-what show. And coming home to my wife with the Cranstonian and Dos Hombres, it gets you even keeled, buddy. I'll tell you. Thank you. How's it going with that?
It's going really well. Aaron and I are going to be traveling down to Oaxaca on Sunday, and and we will spend several days there. And we just rekindle our relationship with our mezcalero, and his name is Gregorio Velasco, and great guy, part owner of our company, and he is the chef. He is the maestro, and he makes this juice Dos Hombres, and we're now the 4th best-selling mezcal in the world.
Yeah.
And it's really been exponentially growing, and we've been so busy, and we're just so proud of it. And it's like you said, Fish. It's like it is very versatile. So I like to drink it by itself, just straight, neat. Maybe one rock, a little orange slice or something if I'm in the mood. Or it's great instead of tequila in a margarita. You can make, it's just, you can put almost any fruit juice in with this, and you'll be a happy person. Or if you're watching your weight, each ounce of Dos Hombres is about 73 calories. So you can put an ounce in there and fill it with ice and club soda, and you have 73 calories, and that's what you sip all night.
I will tell you what, real quick, Brian, that Dos Hombres filled with ice and cranberry juice, and you rim the glass with tahini, that's it. That'll get you over any Ram loss, Dodger crap that we have to go through, or Raider misery. I'm telling you, it's the word I use for it is cathartic. That's what that mezcal means to this guy in Las Vegas dealing with the Raider Nation.
Bombast, cathartic. You work through your issues that way.
Yes, I do. Sometimes I look for a plethora of verbiage when I deal with my sports teams and the crap we have to take out here. I mean, we wanted the Raiders here. They moved from Oakland, and they're not delivering. But that's another story for another time.
They seemed promising, but then there was the problem with the coach, and then there was the players, and you got a great wide receiver now, but now your quarterback is a question. What's going to happen there? Is Derek Carr finished?
He wrote a goodbye letter to the fans today, so they'll waive the no trade clause and we'll get someone else. But when you grow up like we did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the Raiders are dominant, right, Daly? And this is the 18th out of the last 20 years, Brian, that we've had a losing record. It's kind of hard. I don't have any words for it. I need grief therapy for this. I'm a diehard Raider fan. All right. I usually, my background, as you know, from the last show is my man cave, which is all Raiders. I'm in my backyard because I have to get it out of my system. I'm sweating it out. I can't do it anymore. I mean, you're a diehard fan of a team, the Dodgers and the Raiders. At least the Dodgers win. Okay. It's just, they don't win in the playoffs. So.
It's what you go through. You could turn it off and not be a sports fan at all.
No, I need that. No, I'm Jewish. I need the guilt.
It's what we need. It is our gladiators. Right. They go out and they're impressive athletes. But you have to police it. You have to make. I just think it. There, you go through the ups and downs, and that's life in sports, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, before we go, I want to get back to Your Honor again. But one of the things with Dos Hombres, I found it's great in coffee in the morning.
Ooh, wow!
It's excellent in coffee in the morning, and I'll do that every now and then. I'll come up with a coffee recipe, and I say, I need to have something else in it. I try, and I tried the Dos Hombres. I was like, oh my god. It was so good. So try it there that way. Hey, I want to ask you. Go ahead.
No, you're trying. You're drinking alcohol in the morning. Should we be alarmed?
My last name's Daly. Come on. No, I love a little taste there, just to kind of create some different recipes. And for my other show, Undercover Jet Setter, we do a number of that stuff there too. But you can have it in the afternoon. You don't have to have it in the morning. You can have coffee in the afternoon. Okay. So, hey, I went back and like Fish said, I looked at the final episode of season 1 of Your Honor. You directed that. I got to tell you, that the shots you came up, I thought the shot of where Adam kind of reveals that, he has the breathalyzer that all of a sudden, makes your antagonist all of a sudden realize, oh my God, he's the one who was the killer. I thought the shots you got in that last episode were, I felt like I lived in New Orleans. I felt like I actually lived, away from the tourist area and in the streets there. So give me a little perspective on that. And then also, are you doing any more directing? Because I noticed you're not directing the first 2 episodes of the second season.
I'm not. I chose not to direct any of the episodes in the second season. I knew I was going to have my hands full. I'm also an executive producer of the show, so there was a lot of story conferencing. We didn't have our showrunner from season 1, so we have a new showrunner, Joey Hartstone, one of our writers from the first season, who took over running the show in the second season, and great guy, good, talented writer. But I knew that I would have to be with him a lot to really figure out the shape of it. And it is, when you're breaking a season for a show, it's like having a lump of clay, and each person comes in there and goes, I think it should look something like this. And then another person puts hands on, well, no, I think we need to separate that and move that, and so the clay goes through a metamorphosis of hands going in there and shaping and reshaping until you come to a consensus. And so there's a tremendous amount of conversations that go on. And I didn't want to split my focus on, I wanted to stay on the story end of it. So that's why we're doing that. As far as directing, though, I really do enjoy it. And for lack of a tremendous body of work in my directing career, I simply ask myself wherever I place the camera, is the answer to the question, where do I think the audience wants to watch this scene take place? Where would I want to see this take place? And so when I have my actors rehearsing a scene and I'm not in it, I will walk all the way around them to see what angle might be the best, the most interesting. And I thought, for the reveal of the inhaler that Adam puts out in the hallway of the courthouse, I thought, what might be really dramatic is just to see him silhouetted. So up against the glass wall, and we can't make out. We know who it is. We saw him walk out, and we just see the side angle, and to have him bring it up and use it. And I thought, oh, that's going to be a great reveal. So sometimes you get those clean answers where it's obvious, like that one, and some you have to take a lot of time to figure out, where in the world where do I place my cameras? What lenses do I want to use? What do I want to convey? What is the point of each scene? And then you also have to think, what is the next scene? How do I segue into that next scene? What is the last image in my mind of one scene, and what is the first image of the next scene? And you want to keep, so it has a flow. Otherwise, to go from scene to scene, it could feel choppy, and that's not what you want in the overall experience.
Well, Bryan, I can't thank you enough for talking John Daly out of acting, because we have so many Pierce Brosnan lookalikes as it is. But I make fun of John a lot in this show, but you're a friend of his. I got to say, if he was still acting, I wouldn't have him hosting Daly Fish with me, and that's what we're destined to do. But thank you. He can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Bryan, do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Do I remember you acting?
No. Well, do you remember you telling me? No, I didn't. No, because I didn't. I was taking acting classes, and I was doing it primarily for writing and stuff like that. It might help my on camera with, hosting. And I was telling you about it. And you said to me, I don't know if you remember this, but you said to me, they go, do you wake up every morning thinking about an acting role and about acting? And I said, no, not really. He goes, then you don't want to be an actor. And it was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I was telling Fish this. I said, Bryan was the one who said to me, go be a TV host, go do something else. That's not what your heart is in. And I don't know if you remember that, but I am always thankful for you to waking me up to like, yeah, I'm not an actor. Come on.
You know what? You know who also is thankful are audiences around the world. You're not an actor. Yeah, I did stand-up comedy in 1980, 81.
Wow.
For 9 months, I did stand-up comedy. And the only reason I did it was because I was afraid of it. It really scared me. You're on stage, you write your own material. There's a light and a microphone, go. And that's it, man. It's all you. There's no one to bail you out. And I thought, ooh, that's the ultimate. So I started writing material and I started going up on stage at the Comedy Improv, the Comedy Store, the Laugh Stop, and all these other places back then. And I started doing it. The problem was I did it for 9 months and I never progressed past mediocrity. Sometimes I would crush, and it was like I would go to the next club and it just didn't sustain. It was, and of course, 9 months is not, it's 9 years to be able to perfect that timing. And I wasn't able to do that because I woke up with the same thing. I was starting to go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was drinking a lot. And, if you had a good set, someone, hey, let's have a drink. If you had a bad set, oh, you need a drink. So either way, it's like I'm drinking and sleeping at 4 until 4 in the morning. I was turning down auditions for acting roles. And my agent said to me, so are you a stand-up comedian now and not an actor? And I went, oh yeah, wait a minute. I was doing this only to prove I can do it because I was afraid of it. And I went, oh, it's not in my heart. It's not in my blood. So I used that experience to be able to go on talk shows and things like that, to think on your feet and do comedy improv. Yeah. But it's not in my blood either. I'm an actor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Fish, you got any more?
No, just hopefully he can find a way to act like the Dodger manager pretty soon, because
look at this. Another brilliant segue.
Hey, look, you know what? You made a great point about the innocence of the 70s, and that the one thing we had was that transistor radio. And boy, what did Vince Scully real quick mean to you? Because that was about
good question.
Yeah. He was in some ways a sanctuary for me. I had a very troubled kind of childhood in that my parental support system kind of broke apart. I didn't really have enough support around me in that. And, but I remember when things were good up until I was 8 or so, 8, 9, I used to listen to the earliest memory when I was 6 years old. My first game in Los Angeles was at the LA Coliseum in 1961. And it was amazing. And my favorite player at the time was Wally Moon, because I loved his name. And he would use the screen in left field like the big monster at Fenway, and he would hit little moonshots, little chip shots up and over the screen, moonshots. And so I was listening to Vince Scully since I was 6 years old, and now I'm 66. So for 60 years, he has been a part of my life. And I knew that as long as, for those 3 hours of listening to Vin call a game, at least for those 3 hours, I felt safe. I felt like I can relax, and I had a security blanket. And that's when I fell in love with baseball and fell in love with him. He meant everything to me. I was fortunate enough to meet him a few times, and I even gave him his ESPY award for the Lifetime Achievement Awards a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And I got my biggest thrill was being able to introduce my daughter to Vin Scully, and she, because of me, knew his work as well. And it a piece of my childhood died with him, and I'll be forever grateful to that man.
Yeah, Fish, you were the same way too. Yeah,
absolutely. It's Brian's in the business of storytelling and with his great acting, and we're going to watch Your Honor. But Vince Scully in 3 hours would tell stories through every inning. One time he got stung by a bee, John, in Vero Beach, and he used 3 innings to talk about how he had a reaction to it. And they got to get a medic there, and you didn't give a shit who was at bat. What happened? Did you pass out? I mean, he was just brilliant at that, and you don't see that anymore. So we lost a legend, and hey, hopefully
he did not need an analyst. He did not need an analyst with him. That was the great thing about him. He could tell the story. He could keep you centered there without being overly excited, and you got overly excited. So yeah,
you know what? Brian and I never knew what a Farmer John hot dog was until we started listening to Dodger games. The westernmost in quality, easternmost in flavor. That goes to you to your death, man. The deathbed, you remember that. Am I right, Brian?
Farmer John.
Farmer John. Oh, God bless.
It's time for Dodger baseball, and that was like the siren call.
Yeah,
and everything was great for the next 3 hours.
Sure was.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this up. Hey, if you get a chance, take a look at Brian's bio that he wrote. It's called The Life in Parts. Great stuff, certainly about his earlier years. And you coming out with any sequel to that, or are you going to add to that?
I wrote that book about 6 years ago, and it did really, really well on Time's best-selling list and everything. And I had such a good time doing it that I think I do want to write another book. But then I'm tapped out. I have no more stories to tell. That's going to be it.
I don't know about that. All right. And again, the second season of Your Honor starts with Bryan starring in it, and it's going to start streaming and on demand Friday, which is tomorrow, January 13th. And then the second season on-air premiere of Your Honor premieres on Showtime this coming Sunday, and that'll be January 15th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific as well. Hey, Bryan, thank you so much. Thanks, Showtime, for letting us, get you in here. And, we want to get you back again, and we certainly miss you, but we're watching you all the time and just marvel at what you do and what you're offering to people.
Thanks, John. It's good to see you, my friend. And we'll have to do it in person sometime when I'm back east.
We definitely should. And when you get to Vegas, go see Fish over at Shucks.
Got to do that. I've got to pop in.
Got it. Got a lot of Dos Hombres there for you. I love your work, your body of work, but thank you mostly for Dos Hombres.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bryan. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dan.